And welcome back. Time sure flies. We're already at 104 days of the Trump administration. This past Saturday marked the 100th day of his administration. 100 days, it doesn't have any special significance besides it being kind of a political bellwether of how much of a president has achieved. Of course, presidents can achieve a lot over the course of their administration, so what they've done in 100 days, in my opinion, is not that important of a marker. But when you're someone like Trump and you've made some pretty bold promises in your campaign, then it's as good a time as any to reflect on what he's achieved. And Saturday was also my birthday, so I had the birthday weekend coinciding with the 100 days of Trump. And honestly, I think Trump has exceeded expectations in a lot of ways. I think Scott Adams was very prescient in saying that the critical thing that Trump achieved throughout the 100 days wasn't policy related, but it was a matter of changing the perception of Trump as Hitler, which is basically the meme, you could say, that's been propagated by the left, the Democrat Party, throughout the campaign and throughout the first 3 months of his presidency, and probably until the very end of his presidency, just because it's a tactic they'll try to beat him over the head with. I think it's lost its effectiveness, though, and as Scott Adams has said, the biggest achievement of Trump's first 100 days is shifting that perception of, Trump is reckless, we're going to have a nuclear war, the world is ending, to, I might not agree with him, but he appears to be a competent inhabitor of the White House and fulfiller of the duties of president, where he can be quote-unquote presidential. So in that way, Trump has normalized himself, I think, to a significant portion of the population. He has about a 50% approval rating, which fluctuates, but these polls, how accurate can they be? But I think it's probably accurate, roughly 50%, which is amazing considering how much negative press he's had. During the campaign, in the beginning, when he was still in the field of Republican candidates, there was a lot of attention paid to the fact that he gets so much free advertising, because every time he had a rally, the media would go to the rally and they'd carry the whole hour-plus long rally. And they shifted tactics when Trump was head-to-head with Hillary, and they actually started significantly undercovering his rallies, explaining it that, well, he's just repeating the same things, but they realized that all of their attempts to destroy Trump, by there I mean the mass media is the left's, basically the mass media is the left, and I've talked about that before, as far as the way that mass media has evolved to be a bullhorn for leftist politics. But that's something I'll expand on in another podcast. And actually, there's a podcast I did on mass media influence that you can listen on that front. But despite all the negative media attention, Trump is at 50% approval. And I think of the other 50%, a significant proportion, maybe a majority, may not like what he's doing, but they don't think the world is ending and the sky is falling and the Trump is evil personified, like many people in the media try to push. Now, what else has Trump achieved? Well, on the international front, he's met with a lot of world leaders, most significantly with the president of China, or chairman, I forget the exact name, Xi, in Mar-a-Lago in Florida at his residence there. And actually the important thing about that meeting with the Chinese leader was the attack with 59 Tomahawk missiles on the Syrian airbase, which was apparently a response to the purported chemical gas attack by Bashar al-Assad against his own people, but that's not a clear situation at all. This raised some concerns that Trump would be getting America entangled in the Middle East again, as we have been in Afghanistan and still are, Iraq, Libya to a lesser extent, in Syria earlier as well under Obama. Trump has said that he has no plans to go into places like Syria, so hopefully he sticks to his word. But the other factor that was tied into this maybe was not so much the purported chemical attack in Syria, but sending a message to China and to North Korea that Trump is willing to act. Of course, we have the ongoing tension with North Korea, which heated up in the last few months as they tested new missiles, and it's quite possible that they have some more advanced technology that could mean that they have a submarine-launched ballistic missile capability. I was reading something along those lines recently, but who knows? It's for sure that they're trying to develop weapons that are capable of hitting the U.S. and, at the very least, causing a lot of consternation in East Asia, where they are located. So we'll see how that situation develops. Internationally, Trump, I think he's done as well as he can. It's obviously a very difficult situation. He's at the very beginning of his presidency, world leaders are trying to feel him out. He's getting a feel for them, and of course, him being a self-proclaimed master negotiator, he's, I think, been doing a lot of that in the ways as he did before during the campaign with Twitter and different statements, and saying things that sound more outlandish or extreme, and then pulling things back as kind of a negotiating tactic. Domestically, Trump, I think, has not done so well. He's had several executive orders related to immigration that have been blocked by judges, and there appears to be no further movement on that front right at the immediate present moment. But I'm sure there's things going on behind the scenes. On the positive side, Trump has gotten deportations going. The attempts by Attorney General Jeff Sessions to go after criminal gangs, especially MS-13, the El Salvadoran gang that is based in a bunch of cities in the U.S., but I think the worst is in New Jersey. Sessions was in New Jersey recently talking about how they want to go after those guys. Apparently, the flow of illegal aliens from the southern border, mainly Mexico, but other places in Central America and South America, has dropped by 60 or 70% in the last few months compared to the same period last year. So obviously what Trump is doing has had an effect. There's also anecdotal evidence that a lot of people are going back to Mexico, given the flow of cars through the border, on the assumption, I think mostly, that if they avoid deportation, that it'll be easier for them to come back to the U.S. legally at some point in the future. But if they are deported, then that complicates things for them coming back. So that is a positive, but it's not the big things that Trump was talking about. Of course, the signature issue is the border wall, the big, beautiful wall that we're going to have built. And this has been a point of conflict that's been brewing. The most recent display of that was Trump's inability to get any border wall funding into the omnibus budget bill, which continues the operations of the federal government at around $1 trillion between now and September. So Trump couldn't even get $1 billion of what is probably going to be $10 billion or $20 billion or more to build this wall into this bill. And a lot of people are asking, people like Rush Limbaugh and Coulter, what's going on here? We sent you to do these certain things. I think it was Ann Coulter's column where she mentioned, here are your top two priorities for the day. It should be, 1, what can I do to build the wall? And 2, what can I do to drain the swamp? The two big promises of his campaign. I don't think it's a problem of Trump not wanting to do it. I think he really does want to do it, but he's kind of smashing into the realities of Washington, where it's good because we have to go through this process, but it's being revealed that actually a significant proportion of congressional Republicans do not want to pursue Trump's goals. And one of the biggest ones being to tackle illegal immigration and immigration itself and this border wall. So Trump has threatened that he's going to, do the whole shut down the government route by vetoing any further budget bills in September. But a lot of people are asking, why is this being put off for now? I'm cautiously optimistic that Trump is going to do everything he can to achieve this goal. It might be that things are just going to be delayed until a higher proportion of patriotic, America First Republicans are elected, not people who are apparently compromised by lobbyists, people like Speaker of the House Paul Ryan, Senator John McCain, people like that who have been very much pro-open borders, you can say, and not against illegal immigration. Now, of course, this kind of thing is not going to be satisfactory to the base. I mean, there's people who are frustrated that there hasn't been more progress on this, even with Trump not having the full support of Republicans in Congress. They want him to do more, and I think he's been doing as much as he can without going too far out on a limb this early on in his presidency. But if the problem really is the congressional Republicans and replacing a significant proportion of them, then he is going to have to start calling them out at some point, because if he's maxed out his negotiations with them. I mean, I guess the next step would, if he hasn't already done it already, to kind of threaten them privately about campaigning against them in next year's midterm elections in 2018. But at a certain point, if that doesn't work, then he has to be open about it, and that essentially puts him at war with his own party, which he has been to a certain degree ever since he entered the campaign. But this being a sitting president would complicate things even more. So I think he's just being cautious about it. But these things are important enough. I mean, this is if you've read Samuel Huntington, The Clash of Civilizations, or his other excellent book, Who Are We?, about the American national identity, that you can't just have unlimited immigration. America already brings in over 1 million people legally every year. Who knows how many thousands, even with the drop over the last year, if that's to be believed, how many tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands are coming in either through the border or overstaying their visas. And that's another huge problem. Over 400,000 people a year, at least as recently as 2015, 2016, are overstaying their visas. So actually that is the biggest source, apparently, of illegal immigration. So it's a multi-front battle, and this is just on the issue of immigration. Of course, Trump wants to get tax cuts passed. I didn't mention before the fiasco of not getting Obamacare repealed yet, and the vote that they put forward, the American Health Care Act, going down before they even had a vote. It was pulled before they had a vote. So these legislative priorities are not getting done, but the problem seems to be that Trump's proposals, which I think are quite good and will cause a lot of positive economic growth, but for whatever reasons, because of the ways that they're compromised by lobbyists and other outside special interests, the Republicans, a certain proportion of them, probably not a majority, but a strong proportion of them, are not willing to go along with Trump's agenda. And that means that Trump either has to get support among the Democrats, which necessarily means that it's going to water down his proposals, or go after these guys, or find some other third option he hasn't thought of yet to convince them that this is more in their interests now. And it may just be that they feel they're in a strong enough position to, even if Trump said that he wants them replaced in coming elections, that they could survive it. But maybe they're overplaying their hand if it does come to that. Hopefully they are, because I still have faith in Trump that he wants to achieve what he said in his campaign, and I think he's just under tremendous, tremendous pressure from liberals and leftists and people even in his administration who are Democrats and don't want him to achieve his goals, but he, for whatever reason, he trusts them because he's worked with them before in the past. So it's a lot of conflicting stuff that's going on, and I think Trump's handling it as well as he can. We'll have to wait and see what happens. But the, I think, final element I'll mention is that people have to hold Trump accountable. I think he said it many times in his rallies that, hold me accountable. And that's what has to be done with any leader, but Trump as well. Trump, of course, is very headstrong, and he has his beliefs, and, the way he talks to you, you believe what he says. He says, I'm going to do this, I'm going to achieve these goals. But you need to hold his feet to the fire, whether it means on Twitter or contacting your Republican representative or, any other means, comments on blogs. I mean, Trump is a media guy. I think he probably watches way too much TV compared to what he should, read articles on the internet and other things. But, TV is probably the worst medium for that. It's all superficial and not deep at all as far as analysis or anything like that. But Trump's a TV guy. That's how he got his big media thing going. But also, the social media. So I'm sure he pays attention to what people are saying on there. I think it's early on. Trump needs to be supported if you're someone who believes in his message. But there's big historical forces at work. We'll see what happens. In a few days in France with the French election, that has similar echoes of what's going on in the United States as far as the clash between internationalism/globalism and more patriotic nationalism. So we are cursed to live in interesting times, and I think it is what it is. It's never a dull moment in the world that we live in now. It's a bit overwhelming sometimes, and I think it's good to take plenty of breaks, if not spend most of your time detached from the 24/7 news cycle. But it's very thought-provoking, and this is the world that we live in. So I'm going to wrap it up there for now. You can email me any comments you might have, nick@researchteacher.com. And if you like this podcast, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a review on iTunes for the Nick Shakarsky podcast. Signing off in gray Warsaw. I hope it warms up in a couple of weeks or less. But I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.